Russell, so grateful that you could join us today and share your experience. We have Russell Ruckman from Reno, Nevada. And what is your history with gold?
Analytical chemistry.
So tell me a little bit more about your background.
I've done Safe Drinking Water Act and Clean Water Act and Resource Conservation Recovery Act. So I've run most of the instruments available to an analytical chemist.
So we know that gold can be found in different areas, but extraction is just part of that process.
Right. And when you do analysis, you have to figure out if you got all the gold in the solution. Sometimes there's gold that isn't cost effective to go after because the way you get it in order to prove that it exists costs more than the value of the gold itself. We once worked a project where the investors were really excited when I told them we'd just finished proving $1 trillion worth of gold.
Right.
And gold was only selling at $480. And they were all excited. Well, let's go put that $1 trillion in the bank. And I said, well, under the current technology to extract it, to prove it's really there, it's $1.2 trillion. So just give me the difference, the 200 billion, and we'll part ways and I'll be happy and you'll be happy.
So what you actually do is very important, because if it's not profitable, then it's not worth actually pursuing the gold.
Which, you know, the analytical chemist has to both look at, can I prove that it's there? And now that I've proven it there, can we as a team figure out a way to make it profitable to go after it? And there's all sorts of possible difficulties in instrumentation. One thing Lewis talked about is the excitation energy. And AA just has a lot less energy, so it breaks it into the atom a lot less efficiently than an ICP. So an ICP might see some compounds that have gold in them that the AA can't, because there's just less excitation energy available. And then you have other things where you simply don't have enough resolving power in your instrumentation to tell the difference between really high concentrations of iron and gold in the case of XRF, for instance. And so there's a lot of skill that goes into selecting instrumentation for the ore body and figuring out how to use it to come up with the answer. Can we make a profit out of going after this?
So when you were talking about instrumentation, these various methods you were just mentioning, are those actually ways of extracting?
Well, XRF is X-ray fluorescence. So you have an X-ray like you'd use for bones, but after it knocks an electron out of the innermost orbital, something collapses in to take that electron's place. And the farther out it is, the more energetic it is. And so the more fluorescing energy you get out of it. And each of those orbital changes are from specific distances, so they're very specific for an element, and whether it drops from a K or from an L into a K or an M into a K.
So these are actually different ways of looking at what you're analyzing.
Different, and yeah, and AA is atomic absorption, so it is looking for already having the right type of light hit an atom of gold, and then the gold collects part of that energy, and so that light beam gets less powerful, and you know that there was gold in the light beam. Okay. Whereas an ICP, you're looking at the electron as it goes up in energy. When it collapses back down, it emits a specific light wavelength, and you can use that to determine where the gold is. And so each of the instruments has its strengths and weaknesses, and when you get 2 or 3 of them available, you can do a lot more in figuring out what the matrix is and whether or not knowing the matrix allows you to become profitable.
So when doing this, you first start on a small scale laboratory testing, and then you look at the scalability of that?
It's almost always easier to do it in the small scale than it is to do it in the big scale. And so some things that work for the laboratory to prove that it exists don't work to put money on the table.
So how is it that you determine if it can be scaled up?
We ramp up the sizes. We start digesting 10 grams or a single gram or 30 grams in a fire assay, and then we'll look at a pound on a bench, and then we'll look at 20 pounds on a bench, and then if that seems to be working, we'll take it up to a few hundred pounds, and to really make mining profitable, you most of the time have to deal with ton and larger quantities. Barrick has got some properties that they brag that they move over 1 million ton a year, so that's a lot of earth moving.
It is a lot. A ton is a lot. So after determining all of this, your other specialty is taking all of it and making it into gold bars?
I do take the gold and do the refining. So I'll take it into solutions that have a high affinity for gold and a low affinity for everything else. And then I'll use reducing agents that have high specificity for gold and drop just the gold.
So affinity means that it's actually attracted to the gold. And what is the next step that you mentioned?
If you have gold present and iron present at the same time, you don't want to get both of them to go down. You want just the golds so that if they use it in electronics, it's a high quality, and the iron would totally change the superconductor's properties, and so you want to deliver high purity product.
Oh, so you're trying to make it as pure as possible then?
Right.
And how long does that process take?
It depends. If your source is clean enough, you might be able to accomplish it in a day and a half or so. But I often receive things that are contaminated enough that a week and a half later, I finally get enough that I'm happy that that batch is complete.
So when you started your career, is this where you saw yourself going?
Maybe kind of.
Maybe kind of.
When I first imagined, right out of high school, I was a research assistant for my dad, and gold was one of our major research projects. And I noticed how difficult it was to run the instruments well, and that there were a lot of people that treated it like a black box. You just put in the solution and the right answer came out, and you didn't have to worry about matrix interference. So I wanted to go to school in artificial intelligence and write computer programs that would take that instrument and make it black box quality.
Oh, interesting.
So that anybody could just put the solution in and the right answer would come out, because the instrument knew how to be a professional analyst.
Right.
And I never got that far, but I have learned a lot about how to control matrix issues and stuff in all the years I've been doing this.
So from what you've explained, it sounds like perhaps the human element is very important and should remain a part of that process?
As an employee, I like to think so. I don't want to work myself out of a job necessarily.
So Russell, we appreciate you joining us here this afternoon and sharing your years of experience and expertise. You can learn more about gold by visiting our website, www.windsorgoldpartners.com. Thank you.